I would love to see MK11 Shao Kahn in Gi because he's there on Scarlet's card.
Yeah.
But I love that artwork.
And then going back to the rare equipment that immediately applies the death mark before the X-ray is launched. It's the death.
Yeah.
I mean, Nuke will be absolutely OP as soon as these equipments are maxed out.
that bug fixer guy's got a headache. He's probably got a big bottle of aspirin right there on his desk. You know, I'm going to throw this out there. Guys. If any of the developers are listening, I think we should just be able to play some free characters. I don't know, just work out the bugs, you know.
Welcome in, everyone, to Kombat Talks Black, Episode 4. And I'm very excited to be doing this podcast today for you all with two special guests I have with me, Game Time Gaming and KC Mobile Gaming. How's it going, guys?
No, doing fine, thank you. How about you?
Yeah, doing good.
Yeah, welcome in. Today we're going to be continuing our 3.0 in 3 episodes. This is part 2 of that podcast series that we're doing as a crossover between our 3 channels. And today we're going to be covering some pretty cool stuff. One of my favorite things to discuss, the talent tree in Mortal Kombat Mobile. I'm a huge fan of the different talents that are there, but I have to say personally, I'm not the biggest fan of the current talent tree that we have. I'm finding a lot of issues with it. I think one of my main gripes now especially is the nerfing, or rather the bug fix of the teamwork talent. I'm not sure that I completely buy that it is a bug fix, even though legitimately it may be just that, as we found out in the release notes for the update of 3.0 of Mortal Kombat Mobile. But I'm curious what you guys have to say on the talent tree so far, and what you find to be good, useful talents, must-have talents.
Well, then I would start with one of the brand new ones that turned out to be an absolute favorite, and that is Brutal Ending. Totally loving that one. Being able to perform a brutality mid-match is just incredible, not only for boss fights, but it's also a lot of fun to just do that mid-match, and then maybe even ending a match with three brutalities in just one fight. That is so much fun, even though that talent is still bugged and we are desperately crying for a fix. And even though we had the bug update not long ago here with 3.0.1, that talent was not fixed. Bummer.
I think it's really sad because, as you guys know, that was actually one of the features I was requesting to be in the game. I'm thrilled that they got it, although that bug cuts both ways. Sometimes it can work out in your favor in these boss fights, but especially in the Nightmare Tower, they've made it pretty essential for us to use.
Yeah, I agree with KC. Brutal Endings is the way I'm going right now. I tried Deathmark at first for whatever reason, and I don't know if it's just maybe me, but it wasn't working for me. It wasn't applying death marks, and I haven't went back to it yet. I do plan on going back to that and trying it, but as for now, I'm just maining Brutal Endings, and I freaking love it. I love it. It's so fun. It's such a good time saver and a good way to take out a boss, and possibly a very healthy boss at that, depending on how it works out for you. But Brutal Endings is a must for me, and it's a great addition to the talent tree.
Yeah, I think it's quite clear. Deathmark is pretty useless. Some players in the community have expressed that they don't want to run Brutal Endings because it's bugged. I will point out that I've noticed in my own use of Brutal Ending that the bug typically doesn't occur for Cabal, and now for Raiden. It seems to occur somewhat consistently on the Toasty Brutality. So, unfortunately, that's one of the cooler brutalities. You're probably going to be running Strike Force Scorpion more often in these towers, too, especially with the teams that you've got. But, that's something to be aware of. You can actually access the talent with having the bug that takes out the boss and leaves the boss with very little health, but not the bug that causes the game to freeze if you're willing to run Raiden or Cabal. I haven't really tested Sub-Zero or Jade, but I would think that they're probably less likely to be bugged too than Strikeforce Scorpion.
I also wonder if the death mark itself might be bugged due to just being applied so rarely. Maybe that there is something not really working properly at all, and if that would be fixed, then this talent would be way more useful, especially in survivor mode.
Yeah, it's like 25, I think, when it's maxed out on combo enders that may not activate unless you get the precision talent and give them a 40% chance of activating. So for either Brutal Ending or for Deathmark, you have to run precision maxed is advice that I think we all can agree on.
Agreed.
Definitely, yep. I was just going to mention that. That's since I went combo ender heavy, that was one that that's a must as well to have maxed out.
But then even thinking 20-25%, still it would have to trigger at least 2 or 3 times per battle instead of just like one time during an entire hard battle.
Yeah, well, and something else that people have spoken to me about was using combo enders that have lots of hits, thinking that it would trigger kind of like Revenant is more likely to trigger if you have more hits on the killing blow. Unfortunately, in my case, I used, I think it was either Classic Liu Kang or Circle of Shadow Liu Kang, who have combo enders that feature lots of hits, with the bicycle kick combo enders, punching combo enders, etc.
Just try Cabal.
yeah, Cabal too, and it still would not trigger. So I just got so frustrated with it. You invest so many points to be able to get to it because it's at the end of the tree. In its current state, Deathmark is utterly useless, in my opinion. So I think that's where we all stand on that. So I'll move on. But looking at some of the other talents in the offensive tree, what do you guys think now? I think it's phenomenal. This is one of the big improvements that you've got it set up that you can get both Lin Kuei tutorage and Black Dragon training within the same tree. So now we can increase our critical chance as well as our critical damage at the same time. Do you guys run with those talents maxed, or do you tend to use those talents in your trees?
I currently I don't have them maxed, but I feel like right now I need to go back and reset a lot of my talents. Like I said, I tried the Death Mark at first, that wasn't working, so I went back and reset. And since I was going combo ender heavy, I actually maxed out Artist Tsunami, which I'm not very impressed with, but I think I'm going to go back and start spending those points towards other items like what you're just saying. But as of now, I don't, but I definitely will when I go back and reset them.
Okay.
Well, for me, it's a bit, besides the brutal ending, I'm totally investing in the defense.
And I've got mixed feelings on that. We'll get into that next. I really think these offensive talents are kind of a must because you're getting a sure thing with those. It is still percentage based, yes, but it's like throwing on an equipment, on the base of all of your characters that gives you, I think, what is it, a 22% chance for a critical and another 17% chance for critical damage increase, which I think is pretty substantial, especially in these towers when you get multipliers. But even in faction wars, even in survivor mode, you don't want to run up against a team that is running these offensive talents because they're going to hit you for a few hits and it will take off a lot of health. But I think we should get into defensive talents now and discuss some of what you were talking about, Casey. I still, this is a point where I have a lot of frustration. I have to choose between Bear Stance and I think it was Hawk Stance that I used to love to run out of the support talents that would give me all that high debuff resistance. Now I've got to pick one or the other, and I suppose it's balanced out a little bit by the upgrades that we have to all of our support cards, so we can increase our health that way as well. I find it kind of frustrating to have to choose between a health boost and debuff resistance, but maybe from a balance perspective it's a little bit better. I'm kind of curious What talents do you guys run in the defensive talent tree?
So as far as like I picked Rhino stance, and like I said, I'm probably gonna back and reset these. I just wanted to pick something so I could move on to the next because I wanted to hit that Revenant and the Shinnok's teaching, like we were mentioning before in the first segment. Those are so valuable now to have, and I went really offense heavy. I feel just didn't at the point where I got to defense. I didn't have a lot of points to spend anymore. When I got down to Rhino stance and Hawk stance and Bear stance, I just picked Rhino just to take less basic attack damage, and then move on to the next, so I could get over to the far side of that tree to pick up on the Revenant and the Shinnok's teaching. My talent feels like kind of a mess right now, but I went offense heavy on for some of these towers.
Well, and I think that's just where so many of us players are at with the new talent tree right now. We're tweaking it. We're trying to figure out things that will work. So it is very much work in progress. And that's why I think this episode is going to be good for a lot of people, because it's going to give them insight into a good talents that they ought to be running in these different talent trees that maybe they're not.
Well, I always was totally heavy on the Hawk stance, fully maxed out, and I would take that over the Bear stance any day. But I also enjoy that new Intimidating Presence talent that reduces the ability of the opponent to break your block, which can be also incredibly useful just since you can keep your defense mechanism back up. Then another thing that I enjoy a lot is the Cyberlink Quay programming, just reducing 30% duration of incoming DOTs, and that just for only 1 point. If you choose to invest more points in that one, the duration of DOT is almost non-existent. It's like 3-4 seconds or something, and it's gone.
I'm going to stop you for just a second on that, though. And I know you're probably going to mention it, but I want all the players to understand that that's a big disadvantage if you're running characters like MK11 Jade or Dark Raiden.
That's correct. I mean, Jade wouldn't start burning and healing, but if I play other characters with Jade together who don't have this healing ability, let's say I just play Raiden with her together, then they would take the fire DOT. Right. Or the poison, whatever it may be, you know?
That's an extremely good point. And again, if you listen to the previous episode on GTG's channel, we discussed having different talent tree builds specifically for survivor mode. And like Casey's talking about, this can be an extremely good talent to run on a specific team that doesn't have a good counter for your classic reptile, your MK11 Scorpion, these characters that are just going to destroy you and destroy your team in survivor mode, especially in the elder mode, if you're not running these kind of defensive talents. So very good one to mention for that reason, Casey.
I think it all comes down to the point that we need presets for the talent tree as well.
Yeah, I think that's something we've been asking the development team for a while, but with the introduction of these new modes that require such different talent tree setups and even different types of teams given different seasons, we've definitely, it's in the natural progression of where we need to go. So hopefully they have it in the works already. Maybe it's going to be one of those things, like just like I kind of predicted the brutal ending talent. They're already working on this and hopefully getting it implemented in updates to come. But if not, man, if you guys are listening, this is a feature that we need badly in the game at this point.
Well, of course, I'm running Revenant and at the moment Shinnok's Teachings, even though one of my absolute favorite is the Shaolin Last Stand, simply because when only one fighter is left on the field, he gets immediately a bar of power, which often leads to an X-ray. But in case now with the Survivor mode up and that they are constantly getting these Bone Shields and Revenants, it's better that 2 Bone Shields are up at the same time and we just wait which one expires first, instead of having an X-ray that would end up on a shield.
Okay, but I'm going to say, at least as far as my perspective goes on the defensive talents, one of my biggest frustrations with them is they are very low percentage activation. even the unblockable chance reduction, of course, is a prerequisite. You have to be blocking in the first place to make use of intimidating presence. But even beyond that, then it's just a percentage. So you're rolling the dice on that. And it's the same thing with the Reaver armor, which I was kind of excited about just because, those lethal blows do such a massive amount of damage to your characters. If you could reduce the percentage, that'd be great. But again, maxed out, it's only 20%. And that's the only reason that I max that talent. So in some of the builds that I have, just because a lethal blow can do such a massive amount of damage, and part of the reason that I did that is I had, characters getting taken out in the Nightmare Tower with, one or two hits from a boss. I think it can kind of be worth it if it actually works, but at the end of the day, you've only got a 20% chance of it activating.
I think what we're finding out too is, especially for new players, this talent tree is literally the backbone of your roster. Like, you might not know it at first, but you need to really pay attention to what you're spending your points on. And I just want to go back to having presets. At this point in the game, with so many players, with so many characters, and so many different modes that have different challenges and difficulties, it's silly to not have the ability to have presets, in my opinion.
It's extremely important to cover that, because I'm finding that I'm actually quite frustrated with myself because I'm putting off doing certain modes, Survivor mode in particular, because I've got a build set up to do Nightmare Tower, and when I'm in the higher levels of the tower, it's all the more important that I'm running a very specific talent tree build. So at the higher levels, I'm kind of tied to that, and I really don't want to have to break down the tree to do Survivor mode, but I end up having to do it anyway. And the expense is kind of minimal versus the time invested, I think, for a lot of players.
I can't stress that enough to anybody listening to really watch what you guys are saying on this talent tree, because it helps. You got to have this. You got to have it in the right spot to beat certain parts of this game. So,
and I guess that leads me a little more to support talent tree. I think we've covered defensive pretty well, although I did want to mention the Red Dragon training. I actually enjoy quite a bit as a talent because of the power drain immunity coupled with the stun immunity that you get from that. And it seems to activate for me a little more often than 20% would seem to lead you to believe. But I don't know if either of you guys run that talent, but I found it to be extremely useful because you think you're going to get stunned, but you're immune, and you think you're going to get power drained, but you're immune.
I don't really run it at the moment, but I used to run it a lot, especially combined together with the Hawk stance, because that would add another 20% on that too. And then if you combine that with Earth Elemental Face Mask or something, you're almost completely immune.
Yeah, I'm not running. Yeah. I'm actually invested in Cyberlink Quay programming just below it. So, but no, that's interesting.
Yeah, extremely useful talent. Kind of getting around, like Casey pointed out, that's a great way to get around the low percentages by stacking these benefits together.
Yeah, as far as support goes, my poor support down here is looking lonely.
My support is 0.
Yeah, support talent tree. I really hadn't been using it that much in the game until recently. Again, I've been experimenting with some builds, and I found it actually to be very useful in that regard. And I would say specifically what you want to use it for, in my experience now, is in going for a certain special. Your special 1. Your special 2, your X-ray, you want to use it for those specifically.
Yeah, the one that I did invest heavily in, and I know it's bugged, is teamwork, because I was running MK11 Jade a lot, and her snare, her SP1 snare, was so valuable for boss fights, just to keep them in the fight and just start chipping away, and then hopefully brutal ending, and then also on top of that, put quite a few points to rapid response just to help out with that SP1 damage. But other than that, that's it. Like, that's as far as I went on my support tree.
And
The only
Casey,
thing on the
you aren't really
support tree
using.
that I would be interested in would be the weak point attacks. But there is the problem, the weak point attacks are so far in the back, and all the talents
Yeah.
that are before don't interest me, so I would spend a ton of points just for that one talent, and that's not worth it to me, so I just focus on offense and mainly defense.
Okay, I have a confession to make. You know, I put out my videos with the defensive talents, but ultimately, you know, aside from survivor mode, I'm extremely frustrated with how little they actually activate. So I've gone back to using a support tree myself for the most part. One of the very beginning talents that I want to draw folks' attention to is the boar stance. I think typically it would be a pretty boneheaded talent to be using, but in the Nightmare Tower, where you have a lot of these killer jacket guys, and they're activating their shields all the time, or they even start the match with a shield on, use boar stance. You can get it up to 30% chance, which doesn't seem like it should be activating very often, but I've used it and it seems to almost be around 50% of the time. I don't know. But I am throwing a lot of special twos with Liu Kang that have the stun attack. And I would draw the attention of players specifically to Scorpion characters, you know, having a stun on special one. You can use that over and over and over again. You could couple that specific boar stance talent with some of the other special one uses in the talent tree. You'd have to give up something on the offensive talent tree to get rapid response to increase your damage. But again, I find it to be extremely effective to have a rapid response, boar stance, outworld, scourge, and then there's one other talent. I'll be putting them all up on my screen, maybe showing people an overview of that. And of course, I'm going to have that talent tree build in my next video that comes out. You know, you can utilize a special one build again, and it's effective in taking down the shields of these bosses that keep popping up, so that you might be able to get in an extra critical hit, which can really speed up the match.
That's a good point.
So I just throw that out there. But again, I think support tree, you know, the main things to go for, I wouldn't look at the final talents in those. I don't find them to be particularly useful still. But I think Outworld Scourge or Adenius Champion are what you want to look for. If you have characters that are special one or special two, you know, incredibly powerful or useful in that regard, then, you know, you utilize those talents to reduce the cost of those specials, and also give yourself the chance to activate them for free. You'll be pretty happy with some of these builds, especially like I said with Combat Cup Johnny Cage, or with Scorpion. You can run the Scorpion loop still, even though, you know, teamwork isn't as effective. Okay, yeah. So I think that has us pretty well covered on the talent tree. And we've covered, I think, most of the must-have talents and talents to avoid.
Casey, what's your classic Liu Kang fusion at? You have a max?
8.
8? Oh, I'm so jealous of you guys having him. He is such a beast.
Classic Liu Kang's a huge asset to have. But this is a nice segue into our next section here on our Nightmare Tower gear analysis. You already mentioned a few pieces, Casey, but we're going to start with our uncommons. Why don't I kick it to you first? What do you think of Jump Rope Song?
Jump Rope Song, I find it incredibly fun on Freddy, simply because you have that chance to stun on special one as well. And given if you play him also together with his gloves, he deals so massive damage just with a few basic hits, let alone the special one to snare again. If you can manage to get the opponent just locked in that loop between constant criticals and then a stun on top, and also being snared, Jump Rope Song is incredibly fun on Freddy, even though I also find it quite useful in general in the tower when using it on other characters. simply
Yeah.
because of that higher critical chance.
Yep, I totally agree. I think it's neat that they added another element to Freddy's SP1. Did not see that coming. That now it has two things that can happen. The critical damage is definitely nice. I'm probably gonna use it outside the Nightmare Tower, maybe on higher critical damage teams like Cyrax, Hattrick Kung Lao, and people like that. It would have been nice to see that critical damage up a little bit, because if you remember back to like the Dragon Teeth, that's like 75%. Oh,
yeah, and I'd point out for our listeners, this is a pretty essential gear piece for Nightmare Tower to be running on your damage dealing character. That hopefully has a black breaking gear with crit, like we talked about. The revolvers are nice. On the gold characters that I have, a lot of times what I'm running is the revolvers plus Shao Kahn's helmet and jump rope song as a third, and then I'm doing just a massive amount of criticals. I'm doing a massive amount of critical damage, and I've got the damage boost of 80% from that maxed out, being very helpful. And I think that a lot of you who've been playing for a while now probably have some of these uncommons at a fairly high level, hopefully.
And not to mention the artwork's freaking cool. I do like the artwork on that one. It's just a throwback to those to the Freddy late 80s, early 90s cassette tape.
Yes,
yeah, especially it reminds me of those old posts or pictures where you have this one picture of a cassette and a pencil, and how does that connect? People of the 80s will know.
Yeah, 100%.
for sure. So in moving on then to the trophy collection, that's our Jason Voorhees uncommon. What do you guys think of that one?
Oh man, it's, in my opinion, it's the coolest uncommon. Literally 100% resistance to bleed. I think that's huge. Definitely, probably use it in Faction Wars when coming up against like a bleed heavy opponent like Hanzo or somebody like Baraka or Vampirus Molina or somebody like that. If I see them coming up, I might go into my gear and put that on my character. And then the fact that it totally changes up Nightmare Jason. It gives him the ability to resurrect now. He's a totally different Jason at this point. So I really enjoy this piece of uncommon gear.
Well, I have to say this is my Fusion 1 gear. So I'm very far away from enjoying the benefit of a Jason resurrection. My jump rope song is maxed out, but trophy collection, I just got the second copy of it. I don't know why this thing is evading me, but I'm also thinking like when the towers once are gone, it might not be that incredibly useful on Jason, simply because the hockey mask already gives you 50% resistance to the buffs. Then you have the hawk stance with another 20, which means you're left with 30%, and you could use maybe something like Sindel's Signet Ring or something. It would basically do the same thing, so if it's not maxed out, it would simply be just the resurrection that I would be using it for. And of course, if I would have it maxed out, then it will be on Jason just for that fact. But outside of that, it's not really that much needed on Jason, because bleed resistance, I don't think that I would use it that much on Jason when not maxed.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's excellent for Jason. It's amazing on Jason once you've got it maxed. It totally changes the equation, like you were saying, GTG for Nightmare, especially having a resurrect now. That's
it's
awesome.
It's like the one thing he was always missing was the ability to resurrect, and now you can give him that if you choose to.
Yeah, he matches with all of them, and then you're talking Slasher. You've got 3. He resurrects 3 times now. So
yeah, well, that's the thing
awesome.
with the gold characters. Those equipment slots are so valuable. You got to really pick the right pieces to put on those 3 slots, and I don't know if I'd use it on a gold Jason, just because they do already resurrect and gain that bar power.
Okay, moving on to family tools. What do you guys think of that one?
Well, I definitely think that Leatherface got a very needed upgrade, just in terms that his enrage will be permanent if he's below 20% health, even though he's then almost dead, unless you give him like some security net like Living Dead or something. But just that damage that he will do in enraged mode, it's incredible, and now I think it really made Leatherface better.
agree. Yeah, and think about just combining that with like obviously his chainsaw and maybe even like the cybernetic heart. You could just have a lot of fun at a low amount of
Yeah.
health.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, cybernetic heart,
Yep.
running the defensive talents. Like if you start to get low health and you're hitting those bone shields, and then you get your revenant on top of it. It's,
Yep. Because that was the real big draw or selling point when they came out with Pretty Lady Leatherface when he was a gold was his rage. You know, that was obviously part of his passive, but that was a big draw, and now you just can add to that. So I like it. I do like this one.
It
And again,
also feels like a little bit that they buffed him a bit in terms of how fast he can block now after using a special. That was always like his biggest problem. Every time he did a special attack, he was vulnerable for attacks, and now he's actually able to block a few things in between.
nice.
It is interesting. Also, like just real quick before we move on, like when they do an update, there's little details that somebody's working on over there that don't get mentioned, but that maybe even just like graphics change or something like that. And like you said, maybe he blocks faster, but it's not going to make the notes, but it definitely happened. And that's another reason this game's fun to play is because they do kind of update some of that stuff in the background.
Absolutely. Okay, moving on to the rares. We'll start with this Crypt Spider Fang.
So yeah, I'd like it. Obviously, go back to the artwork. Love the artwork. Love that they brought the crypt back into it. It's not bad. I might use it outside the tower with poison-based characters. You know, Retrodivore, Reptile. Be a good piece of equipment if you're maxing out your Cruel Affliction, in my opinion, just to get that damage boost for the damage over time. Also, could combine it with, you know, like Killer Wasp, Razor Sai, just to maximize that damage over time. But yeah, not overall pretty good. I like it.
Casey?
Well, I still don't have it, but I can imagine it will be incredibly useful on Venomous Devora, especially when you put her up together with Ravenous Melina and Nauseous Reptile.
Yeah, I think the 40% chance to apply on Combo Ender, I mean, it could work exceptionally well with some other rare equipment. Yeah, I think, you know, the increased damage on damage over time is huge too. So I see it as useful, but maybe not quite as useful as our next two rare pieces, at least when maxed. What do you guys think of Bihan's Visage?
I would definitely think it's totally OP once maxed out because it applies the death mark before the X-ray, which means that nothing will be able to save you. No Bone Shield, no Revenant, no Living Dead armor, no Ice Frost Orb, no nothing. You're dead. You are instantly dead. At least if the X-ray is dealing enough damage to take down your health bar.
Yeah,
I love it. Yep.
Aside from that, the chance to reflect 100% basic attack damage when blocking, that you can already have with Jax's equipment. You even have it better with the Bloody Shogun armor or something, I think. And then what else did it have? We have some health boost in the Nightmare Tower, 600%. That's nice.
Yeah.
It can make a difference, but only for the tower. So after that tower is gone, that will not really play into it at all. And then we have the health boost in general, 35%. We have tons of gear that does that. So it's basically max it out and it's amazing. Or you have it then for Noob's Brutality.
It's part of the Brutality gear, so we're going to be wanting to run it all the time on Noob for that reason. And I think specifically because he's got the passive that, you know, sends the clone to attack when he's blocking, you know, being able to also reflect that basic damage while being able to apply Death Mark and do damage from blocking, you know, it fits very well with his character. All right, Thunder Lord's Sigil. Go ahead, GTG.
Yeah, you gave me the one that reads like a tax document or something here. Deal 15% of non-boss opponent's health as additional damage on stun. I think their legal team wrote that up. It's an interesting take where you can use their health as damage to them. It's kind of interesting. Let's see what else we got. 20% X-ray fatal blow attack damage boost. That's pretty nice as well if you're investing heavily into that. For each debuff removed by Dispel, gain 1 strengthen buff. Strengthen buff stack, 100% damage boost, 300% max health boost. Health boost isn't too good, and that's obviously Nightmare Tower only. You know, they put some thought into that one as far as I can I can tell.
I was going to say, I think the stun applies any time to any player. So as long as the piece is in play, and I could be wrong about this, but it seems to be that, as long as it's equipped, if anybody on your team stuns, then they're going to have this additional damage that applies. I don't know if you guys noticed that as well, Casey.
Well, that could be. I don't have that equipment yet because my first thought was it seems to be specifically designed for MK11 Raiden, who has the stun on combo enders, to give him like that extra damage boost, which is kind of lacking a little still in his special one. And now we would get it back this way, then to kind of even the odds.
If it's maxed, if you're removing a debuff with this spell, then you're going to gain 1 strength as well on his special ones. Well, and I'm also looking at the 20% X-ray fatal blow attack damage boost. That's pretty huge on Raiden, just because, especially if you think of like Dark Raiden, for example. But any of the Raidens, once you've triggered their X-ray and then you have the extra power gen, you could just be railing off several X-rays or fatal blows throughout a match. So
yeah, I feel like
see it as pretty powerful gear.
I feel like they've been trying to buff MK11 Raiden as well. He was such kind of a letdown when they first dropped into the game, and maybe this is their way to kind of like, well, obviously sell equipment, sell packs, but again, just to give him a little more buff and be more of a help during battles. So because he needs it.
Well, and I'll point out too, I think this applies to Injustice 2 Raiden's passive that does the stun assist. I think when they're stunned, they also get hit with this. I'm pretty sure that it assists on stuns from other team members, and then it also works with his passive.
Yeah, that's pretty huge if it does, really.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, and also I think we're going over to the epics now anyway, and the next one here on the list would be the Stormweaver, and I would just throw that in right now, because combining those two together, especially when you have that lightning blow coming down on basic attacks, and then just think about MK11 Raiden. Like the lightning blow comes down, deals damage, then you stun and you get extra damage from the sigil. Wow. Like that would instantly kind of remove like half your health bar in one go.
Yeah. Well, and I have to say, I've got the Stormweaver at a very low fusion. I think it's like Fusion 0 in my collection right now. And using it, that lightning strike on a basic attack that deals additional damage, it's a massive amount of additional damage that it deals. And I say that there's a real synergy too between the chance to dispel when performing a special attack, because each time you're dispelling and you're removing a debuff, you're going to be adding a strength bonus through the sigil. So it's a pretty powerful piece as an epic.
Yeah, they put some thought into these two pieces, that's for sure.
The only thing that I don't understand exactly is what does the basic hits mean, because like facing in the tower, I got hit with that lightning when I did basic attacks, but I also got hit with it when the opponent did basics. So does that just apply to all basics? Is it bugged? I have no idea. It's like, what are like the parameters we're working here on this thing?
Yeah, the language is kind of vague. Chance lightning will strike the opponent on basic attack. I take it to mean that it's got to be you doing the attack or Raiden doing the attack to you for it to trigger. Yeah, it's extremely powerful. I would say even border
that absolutely
OP when it's maxed out for sure. Especially with the 1.5 bar of starting power.
Yeah,
if it's maxed, we're gonna hate running up against the hackers.
Yeah, and we will need years to max that thing. Let's just face it. Unless we are investing thousands of dollars into NRS's greedy hands, it will take us years.
It would definitely take some years. Yeah, for any epic equipment at this point, that's for sure.
Yeah, but at least on this tower, we're able to get it with each completion. But along those lines, then moving on, we have
Yep.
Bihan's Tormentor on the list.
Yeah, I was gonna say, unfortunately, I don't have this one either, but I'll kind of read through the properties of it. 15% lethal blow. Obviously, these are maxed out. 15% lethal blow chance, 20% reduced power cost on all special attacks. That's very nice. Gain one bar of power when any teammate or ally summon is defeated. So that's huge for new, obviously.
Yeah, and it kind of reminds me of Cabal's gear. I think it was on the Buzzsaw, where he gets 2 bars of power immediately once like a teammate is defeated. It's kind of the same thing, just that they added here the clones.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's going to help immensely. I mean, you put this on noob, and it's just going to be lights out for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, 600% damage boost in the tower only. But still, man, what a good piece of equipment, and I couldn't ask for maybe even any better just for that character in itself. So hopefully someday I'll get him and be able to get this piece of equipment as well and try it out on him. But yeah, pretty solid piece of equipment in my opinion.
Yeah, I got it now here on my second run, and so far it's only doing extra damage for me in the tower. Outside of towers, it's kind of useless. I don't have a noob yet. At least I have the brutality gear already ready for his arrival once he will be part of my collection, but so far it's just helping my classic Liu Kang to deal some additional damage now. But yeah, when maxed out, 1 bar of power, even if just a teammate is defeated, or those ally summons which only have 25% of the general health anyway, so they die fast, very fast anyway, so you would get bars of power very, very fast. And depending on if you're starting on a special 2, you're immediately coming in with X-Ray, and then going back to the rare equipment that immediately applies the death mark on before the X-Ray is launched. It's instant death.
Yeah.
I mean, Nuke will be absolutely OP as soon as these equipments are maxed out.
Yeah, that's for sure. And once he's at a high level himself too.
Yeah. I'm gonna throw this out there. Just for the fact that, like, I feel like we're doing a lot for this game and the community. If any of the developers are listening, I think we should just be able to play some free characters. I don't know, just work out the bugs, try them out. Just gonna throw that out there. Maybe you guys could do something with that.
I would be happy with a Fusion Zero Noob Cybot.
Right. I'm just gonna say they're gonna learn a lot. If they don't have time for testing, they're going to learn a lot from you guys testing.
Well, we definitely give them a list like 2 days later.
Yeah, you would. Yeah,
it's like you are looking for bugs. We have 15.
That bug fixer guy's got a headache. He's probably got a big bottle of aspirin right there on his desk. So sorry, I just wanted to throw that in there. I think that'd be pretty sweet down the road. So
absolutely. Yeah, we'd love for that and be able to provide lots of feedback there. Yeah, moving on to the next equipment piece. You guys have already mentioned it. KC is your favorite, so why don't you lead us off with the killer jacket?
It was mainly the thing, and like that was the gear piece I was the least interested in, and it was like the first thing that dropped from me in the tower. And as you know, like my entire Nightmare team is maxed out, so I'm just playing that tower for gear. And then getting the killer jacket, I mean, it's super useful if you see it on the bosses, especially match number 200, which was an absolute nightmare, and it absolutely earns the name of the Nightmare Tower to be there. But then basically on my own teams or characters, I didn't find that it doesn't make that much of a difference, mainly because the opponent doesn't really hit you with lethals that much. If you notice, like when the boss is attacking you, you just take massive damage in general, but they kind of avoid lethals, so you don't really get that shield that often, despite still taking massive damage from every single basic attack they launch. The only good thing is that we get now a solid health boost, and that already on Fusion Zero. I'm really grateful for that. So on my classic Liu Kang is very happy about the killer jacket now.
This is the piece that's actually useful for you if you've got high damage dealing character like classic Liu Kang that gets KO'd in maybe a hit or two. I think you have to admit, KC, it's useful to you for that, because
absolutely,
you're not getting taken out in one hit any longer thanks to the jacket.
It was such a pain in the butt to see applied during those final fights, those final boss fights. But it was kind of a fun waiting for it to expire and then dropping your specials like your SP2s or something, just dealing massive damage. Just it was kind of a fun way to drop those heavy hitting specials. Is when you saw that shield go away, then like, okay, I'm doing it now. You know,
it's totally timing based gameplay.
It's all timing, 100%. And not to mention, it's very stylish. I'm sure that guy wearing it's, real nice guy. So, but anyways,
a Buffalo Bill of sorts. Yeah.
Yes, I was just gonna say, the artwork is
kind of
amazing.
like who cut up meat.
Yeah,
and made a beef jerky jacket.
A beef jerky jacket. That might be something.
It could also be Dramen.
It could be, yeah. Well, and the thing is, like, that character that shows in the artwork, like, who is that? Like, who's...
It kind of looks a bit like Aaron Black.
It does kind of, doesn't it? Yeah. If you put a hat on him, for sure. But
I mean, we have the Black Dragon variation, the former bounty hunter who didn't have a hat, so it's kind of very similar. Just erase that mohawk,
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. No, and then moving on to our say hello to our little friend, the Demon Bat.
The Demon Bat, yeah. One of my favorites. It's just freaking cool to have a Demon Bat at your side. I'm sorry, but I like it. The one thing I wish that would happen is that if you don't activate it, or if it doesn't activate and you decide to tag out, I wish it would just attack. Not just explode. It seems like a good waste of a Demon Bat to me. But other than that, I'll kind of read through the properties of it here. After performing any special attack, a Demon Bat attacks the victim and deals additional damage and applies bleed while dying in the process. Demon Bat respawns every 10 seconds. This is obviously maxed out, so that's pretty big right there. 30% power generation boost. When the Demon Bat attacks opponents affected by bleed, the user heals for 20% of the victim's max health. That's interesting. Maxed out. Yeah, these are all maxed stats. 225% damage boost, 400% max health boost in the Nightmare Tower only. So some really good stats for a pretty cool looking card as well as graphic when it pops up. So I like it.
I absolutely love the idea of that entire thing. So I mean, for me, it's just a total gimmick. And maybe not that useful in matches, but just having that visual aspect. My first thought was immediately, Vampirus Melina, she needs that thing. That is her pet, that belongs to her. And then also maybe giving it just to one of our Saurian characters, be it the Reptile or Saurian himself. And then I was imagine you just put up like a very low fusion bronze team or something and puts that Demon Bat on Saurian, and then a total beginner faces that team, having never seen the Demon Bat before. It's like, what is this thing? And then suddenly it dies, and he wants to show it to his friends, but it doesn't respawn. It's gone. It's like, what was that?
Yeah, the power generation boost is nice on it too.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
I would definitely be totally up for having one copy of that thing just to have it.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a fun, like you said, it's kind of a gimmick, but it's definitely neat, and I welcome things like that.
Yeah,
it's pretty. It's almost like not really a stage interactable, but sort of.
It kind of brings that kind of NetherRealm playfulness back to Mortal Kombat that they kind of had like in the 3D era. And that kind of got a little lost then with MK9, MKX, and MK11. But now they bring back like some absolutely bonkers stuff, and I love that. It's like it's kind of returned to former glory, at least in that little aspect. It's still shining through. It's still there, and it's very much appreciated.
I agree. Totally agree. Yep.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of fun. Okay, and then moving on to the final thing we're going to cover in this particular episode, the support cards. They've added a lot of value to coins in the game as a currency, at least for now, until we get all those upgraded. And I think that most players are aware, hopefully now, before they spent all their coins, that they could buy silver packs to get those support cards instead of spending hundreds, maybe even millions of coins in cases to get to Fusion X, for example. But hopefully folks know about those strategies. And I was just curious if you guys had specific strategies you wanted to share along those lines, maybe beyond what we've talked about buying the silver packs
for
to
sure.
max those out.
My best strategy is just let them drop. I don't bother at all because some support cards is something that drops so easy. I'm not spending a single coin on support cards. I'm just investing them as usual into the equipment pack. And even now, without doing that, just by running through the towers and Faction Wars rewards, I have some already at Fusion 8. It's just
right.
let them roll in. Even opening the free bronze gift pack there, like every 4 hours, can give you one of those. Test your luck in the morning when you open the game for the first time, can give you one.
Yeah.
So I just let them roll in. I don't really care to spend extra on that thing because they will max out sooner or later anyway.
Okay, well, what about survival of the fittest?
I got 1 copy.
I've got 0. I've tried purchasing some of those packs and I have not received one yet. But
it just dropped in the tower for me.
Did it? Oh,
okay.
Nice.
Yeah, I've got 2 myself. I
awesome.
think I pulled both from silver packs.
Nice.
No, I'm using the same strategy as KC. At first, I started purchasing for some of the characters that I use a lot, and I was like, man, the cost is ridiculous. So I'm just letting them drop like KC's.
Yeah, as I saw, then the next fusion would be like 50,000 coins or something. I said, nope, not doing it.
And each fusion jumps like 75,000.
Yeah, it's like massive.
Yeah,
and I just wonder, is the
doubles.
survival of the
It
fittest then
doubles
even
almost.
a reward in Faction Wars End? Like, is that card included in those basically
It is.
support cards?
Actually, pulled one of them today from the Faction Wars reward for my friend whose account I'm running on the iPad. So,
oh, nice. Good to know.
Yeah, and I'm inclined to think it will only go to 4 because it appears in that same area as those other 3 cards when you're looking at your support cards.
Yeah, it's my first
and
thought.
I've received fusions, or what would have been fusions on Cove, Fujin's Blessing, and Linkway Temple, and they all still sold back.
Okay, because that's like more of an all-character support card than a specific
bonus.
That makes sense.
Okay, and then, as a nice way to close out the episode, why don't you guys share some of your favorite support card art? And I'll start off with you for this GTG, Father King Gorback as Ron Perlman.
I enjoyed Perlman. I mean, come on.
So what else have you got?
Okay, so I really like Smoke's Toasty. It's just I just love he's all kind of shadowed out and you don't really see him, but the artwork is amazing there. And then my 2 other ones, I picked 3, are both new Saibot, original Sub-Zero and Reborn in Netherrealm. I just think whoever they have working as an artist for them is killing it. And I really would love, maybe this is a future podcast, but I would really love to see, do they do commissions? Do they have other outlets where they sell their artwork or anything like that? Because, man, I'd love to have some posters of some of this artwork because it's just amazing. So other than the King Gorback one, or aka Ron Perlman, those are my other 3 top favorites.
Well, my number 1 would be Ermac, and that is a heal one and is called Legion of Souls. It's basically just him surrounded by many of those green souls, and I just love that artwork, how it's put together. It looks incredibly stunning. I would even put that up as a poster on my wall. My second one would be Jason, which is also the heal, and it's called Undying. It's like a very, very classic picture of Jason Voorhees just standing there, kind of in the mist, in the twilight. It's wow. Love that darkness that it has to it.
I think he's underwater, Casey. I think he might be underwater. Honestly.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
that could be.
Yeah, changed to something underwater. But yeah, that's bad.
Definitely has this kind of misty, gloomy look to it.
Crystal Lake.
And my third one would be Scorpion's damage one called Wraith, where you basically just have Scorpion with the skeleton head, the flames surrounding him, kind of helps spawn
like
Scorpion.
Ghost Rider.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just like a beautiful artwork. I think they did an incredible job on that.
Yeah, my favorites. I definitely love Shao Kahn Creation for Scarlet. It's one of the few places where we see MK11 Shao Kahn in the game. It's still my hope that maybe he'll come in as a second Shao Kahn Tower reward. Mick, like MK Mobile Team, if you're listening, I think that's what you were referring to as a reward for the Shao Kahn Tower that seemed to be on the way, but plans were changing, or perhaps it was Shang Tsung. But I would love to see MK11 Shao Kahn in the game, and I guess now, if I ask, I can get the smart response that he is in the game because he's there on Scarlet's card. But I love that artwork. And then, of course, Reborn in the Nether Realm, Noob Saibot's support card. That's one of my favorites, too, just because you rarely see him like that. I guess, unless you're doing an X-ray on him in MK11. Right. But you're probably not going to see him in the game like that. And I can kind of just get the whole sense of how he's being reborn there, sort of like in the background in Quan Chi's lair, where you always see the guy rising up out of the pit while you're fighting. It's kind of a cool thing. And then the third would be the Flesh Pits creation for Melina's support cards for her health. I think that's such a cool one. It reminds me, it's a callback to, I think, some of her victory screens in the past, where you would just see those, clone tanks going on and on, like stretching on as far as the eye can see. So kind of a cool callback to some of the older games. But those are definitely my favorite to be out of the support cards.
One thing I find kind of very interesting in terms of Shao Kahn creation is that it technically retcons this, that he took Scarlet in as an orphan. It's like he created her. Or does it just mean that he gave her the blood magic? It's like, it's a two-bladed sword, but technically it's like a retcon that this orphan nonsense never happened. I like that they retcon this. If that was the intent, to really have it back, to have Scarlet being born of the blood of fallen warriors, speaking with several voices, just like Ermac, because she's composed of so many dead spirits, if you will. That was what made Scarlet so unique, and I absolutely hate this orphan origin story now, that Shao Kahn is suddenly so big-hearted that he just took a random orphan. I mean, I still get that with Kitana, because he wanted to get Sindel kind of under his control, and if he would have killed Kitana, then Sindel would never follow anything he says anymore. But in terms of Scarlet, why would he suddenly be so generous?
Right. Yeah.
It's not really Shao Kahn as we would imagine him.
True, but I think MK11 Shao Kahn is, oh man, he's just so awesome, in terms of how he looks, and I would love to see him in the game, especially being such a longtime fan, playing MK2, back in the day, all the way back to MK1, but really coming into my own as Baraka on Mortal Kombat 2 in the cabinet version, and getting my butt kicked by Shao Kahn, and just having him laugh at me and tell me,
that shoulder charge,
you suck. And then having to pay all the rest of my quarters until my pockets were empty, which I guess that's where some things don't change all that much with NRS over the years. But
and let's not forget that Shao Kahn is still on his way to the Shokan camp.
Yes, looking forward to more of those episodes, KC. So
I'm already writing. I'm already in the writing process for the next episode.
That was awesome.
Okay, and along those lines, that's a great segue to our wrap up here. KC, why don't you tell folks where they can find you?
Well, you can find me on YouTube under KC Mobile Gaming, and if you are clicking on any video, you will find in the description below the links leading to Twitter and Facebook as well, if you want to give me a follow up there as well. And then I would say the next would just be leading on to GGG. Where can guys find you?
Yeah, thanks, Casey. So obviously Twitter at GameTime Gaming 1. YouTube, Game Time Gaming, and as well for podcasts, you can find it on iTunes as well as Spotify under the MK Mobile Podcast.
All right, folks, then that's going to do it for this episode of Kombat Talks Black. Thank you all for watching. As always, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. And follow Man with No Game 45 on Twitter.